It goes without saying that today's embedded designs are a whole lot more complicated than ever before. It seems like there are more and more technology requirements for our embedded designs by the day. And of course, our microcontrollers need to be more robust, and that doesn't even scratch the surface of the software required. So, our design environment must be able to support all three of those design pillars. And, well, also help with debug, security, and prototyping. And what about code delivery and the ability to support multiple vendors in the same environment? Yeah, I could go on and on. What we need from our design environment reads like a novel. So, where can we find an integrated development environment that checks all of these boxes? The MCUXpresso ecosystem, that's where. Hi, I'm Amelia Dalton, host of Chalk Talk. In this episode of Chalk Talk, Kyle Dando from NXP and I discuss the multiple benefits of NXP's MCUXpresso ecosystem. We also explore how the Visual Studio Code, Application Code Hub, and improved software delivery enhance MCX microcontroller development, and how you can get started using the MCU Expresso ecosystem for your next design. And before we get started, don't forget to click that link. There you can find even more information from NXP. Hi, Kyle. Thank you so much for joining me.
Sure. Thanks, Amelia. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Okay, so we're talking about MCX enablement with the MCU Expresso ecosystem. But before we dig into the details, Kyle, what was the motivation to create this ecosystem?
Thanks, Amelia. That's a good starting question. When we look back at the history, most products people produced were fairly simple, right? And in the last 10 years, increased the complexity, right? Everything we see, whether it's a white appliance like a refrigerator, whether it's a door shade or a door lock, everything is much more integrated and has new technology. And so what NXP is working on is an ecosystem or really a development environment to help people develop these complex products. The first thing they've done is establish a very strong microcontroller portfolio. Today we're really focused on that MCX product, but that's the base. And then the second thing they're focused on is, do those products fit the technology requirements, whether it's security, touch, artificial intelligence, machine language, whether it's wireless connectivity. They make sure that those products have those. And then the third thing, which is where I spend a lot of my time, is the application software development. That's both the development tools and the software and how NXP gets those to customers. And at NXP, we call that MCUXpresso.
Excellent. Now, Kyle, what kind of solutions are included in this MCX microcontroller family?
Yeah, so it's been a great reception by the customers. This is the latest microcontroller family from NXP, and it brings the best components from the very popular Kinetis and LPC microcontroller families that NXP has in its portfolio. But now we can offer the customers a very easy to understand single portfolio that reaches that range of applications and that range of requirements that customers have. And so if we look at the MCX portfolio, for example, the portfolio includes the MCX-C, the MCX-N, the MCX-A, the MCX-W, and the MCX-L. Each of those fit a very nice requirement for customers' products and applications. The MCX-C is a very entry-level base microcontroller, but then you can step up into the MCX-N and the MCX-A products. The MCX-N has a lot of accelerators. It has an AI ML engine inside of it. It has a lot of LCD or graphics engines inside. It has a very strong security engine. The MCX-A is very similar to the N, but it takes a lot of those added cost accelerators or components out. They still get that high performance core. The MCX-W, as it would seem to most people, that's our wireless line. That then adds the radio that's required for as NXP provides customers Zigbee, Bluetooth, Thread connectivity. And then the L is our low energy. That's for applications that they need the lowest active power, right? So as it's running, it's not consuming as much power as some competitive solutions. Or when it's off, it's at a very low off current. So that's the portfolio. We're excited. We've gotten a lot of excitement from our customers.
Fantastic. So, Kyle, what all is included in the MCU Expresso ecosystem?
Well, the MCUXpresso ecosystem is a suite of tools and resources for the NXP customers to get started with our products. It covers all of our microcontrollers, including the MCX portfolio I just talked about. What it includes is really three primary things. The first is development tools. The second is runtime software. And the third is the hardware platform or the evaluation kits that people get. For the development tools, what NXP provides in the MCUXpresso ecosystem is flexibility and the power of choice. We let customers select the IDE that they like to develop in, whether it's IAR's embedded workbench or Kyle's MDK ecosystem. They can use those to develop software. NXP provides two options. We provide an IDE called MCUXpresso IDE, which is Eclipse-based, and now we provide an MCUXpresso for VS Code. In addition to those tools, it's important to provide other things for the developers to develop with NXP. The configuration tools for pins, clocks, and peripherals. Our team works on that. We also have very good tools to enable the security features of the products. And we have some debug tools that are for debugging the products, but also for some visualization of the performance of the products. The runtime software, very similar to the tools. We want to make sure that we allow people to get the software the way they want. So for the MCUXpresso SDK, that provides the device drivers, the startup code. It has the stacks and middleware that customers are going to try to evaluate on our products. But what we do is we provide it in many different ways catered to the customer. They can get the SDK straight from the IDE. It's in a quick button and they get the SDK. They can also get it from our website and customize the SDK. And there's also the ability, as I'll mention later, to get it from GitHub and Open CMSIS packs. So providing it in the way that the customer wants to receive it. And then an exciting new way of delivering software to customers is the NXP's application code hub, which I'll talk about later. The final thing, as I mentioned, is the hardware platforms. And so there, we work with our teams to deliver evaluation kits and platforms that quickly get customers to use our parts. The Freedom Board is a very popular form factor and delivery mechanism that we brought back recently. It really provides a low-cost, small form factor, but also allows the customers to expand and explore different peripherals with the shield boards that can be connected on industry standard headers. So it's pretty involved. There's a lot of things there, but it really helps our customers make progress.
So, Kyle, what do you think are the most exciting areas currently in the MCU Expresso ecosystem? And what do you think is most improving the enablement of this MCX microcontroller development?
Well, I love my job, and I know the people that I work with also enjoy what we're working on. And we see three things that we want every customer and every listener to understand. And that's this new Visual Studio Code environment that we're working on. The second thing is the Application Code Hub, a very exciting way to deliver code. There's lots of rich application examples that customers can get, and many of them use that MCX microcontroller family we talked about. And then finally, we want to make sure that customers understand NXP is delivering code in new and exciting ways that really eliminate some of the restrictions or solve some of the requirements they have for code delivery.
All right, Kyle, let's start with that Visual Studio Code. Why is that at the top of your list?
I think the reason that that's number one is, products are becoming more and more software based and dependent. It's typically the longest cycle in the product development is the actual software development, writing, and debugging the project. And so we need to make sure that we're providing our customers a software-friendly environment. Visual Studio Code's really fast, and it's primarily an editor. It's got a few features that software developers are really demanding from the semiconductor suppliers.
All right. So, is Visual Studio Code replacing existing IDE tools?
No, let me make sure I'm clear. I like to use the analogy of electric cars. It may seem silly, but it does make a lot of sense. We see a lot of electric cars out nowadays, and most people love to see them. There are a lot of benefits with electric cars. However, there are still restrictions. I think we could name a few. So there are benefits and restrictions even for the electric car. Well, the same thing applies with IDE environments. So let's take the IR Workbench or the ARM Kyle MDK environment. These are very proven and popular platforms. They have certification and they're used by a tremendous amount of people. And so those people that use those tools are under time constraints. And often they don't know when they can switch over. And they don't want to risk their project deadlines based on change. And there's obviously just some restrictions in the new tools with learning how to accomplish the same tasks. When you remove something and replace it with something else, there's that learning curve. Some people like Eclipse. So even though VS Code is great, and I'll mention some of the real strong benefits of it, some people like Eclipse. It's as I explain, a full cockpit experience. When you work with Eclipse, there's a button for every function. When you sit down there, you can find a button that will do some action required to get a function complete. Whereas VS Code is a more minimalist approach. Everything's hidden and keystroke driven. And so it really depends on how that developer wants to develop their project, just like how I may want to drive to work in a gas car or an electric.
So, Kyle, why do you see customers moving to Visual Studio Code?
So as I mentioned, we do see a big demand for Visual Studio Code. So these are the reasons that we see and we hear from customers. So the first, as I mentioned, it is extremely fast. You can start by clicking on a file and it'll be open in 5 seconds. Other development environments can take minutes. Between loading and then getting to the right environment, it can take you quite a while. So it's just fast. That's primarily the number one thing people notice. I also mentioned it's an editor. It was built by Microsoft to serve their large audience of developers. And so it has a lot of features and functionality that make editing software very fast, whether it's IntelliSense or code completion, syntax highlighting. There's a lot of features that software programmers find help them get their job done quicker. One thing I've been talking about recently is the ability in Visual Studio Code to work with multiple suppliers, multiple semiconductors. It doesn't really benefit NXP, but I see customers wanting to have one tool where they can have a development team that may be using 2 different SoCs from 2 different companies, and they don't want to have to download 2 separate tools. So similar to MDK or IR's embedded workbench, VS Code can provide one tool, their teams can develop on it, and they can switch between profiles for the different semiconductor manufacturers. The other 2 are really about getting jobs automated. So the command line, it's in Visual Studio Code, front and center. People can, if they prefer to just pound out a command, they can type it out and quickly get that accomplished. Customers are starting to ask us about how can we improve our test cycles? How can we put this into our DevOps? So continuous integration is really well done in Visual Studio Code.
So, now that you mentioned that everyone's in the same boat, Kyle, how is NXP's Visual Studio Code enablement different?
Yeah, so all those things I mentioned, everybody gets. That's the benefit of Visual Studio Code. What NXP has done is really our extension or our enablement within Visual Studio Code. I pulled 3 things out that I think are important for the listeners to understand. Number 1 is NXP has an approach of one tool. I mentioned earlier, when a developer installs the NXP extension into VS Code, they are not required to install any other tool. They're able to get started, evaluate the MCX products and other microcontrollers without first installing another tool. Some of the competitive solutions actually require them to download a second IDE, do their exploration, their project creation in those tools, and then they can modify and edit the code in VS Code. So it's really a two-platform development environment, which not many people are excited about. NXP only provides one tool. The second thing that we really have done a great job at is the ability to use that one tool to develop multiple ecosystems. So with VS Code, NXP has allowed customers to develop with a bare metal application. They're able to work with FreeRTOS and Zephyr. And we're expanding it to support even more open standard ecosystems where these software developers need to be able to support different project formats and different tool chains in order to build the projects into microcontrollers from NXP. And so on the graphics here, I show it's very easy for a customer to, with our wizards and with our extension, select a bare metal application, select a FreeRTOS application, or select a Zephyr application, and the tool takes care of everything, and they can quickly get those projects to be evaluated. The third thing that we've done really a great job at is making it easy and flexible for people to get access to the NXP software. As I mentioned, that one tool, that one extension, when they have it, they can click a button that says import repository, and they can get the source from wherever they want, wherever they prefer. They can get it from our GitHub repository. They can get the Zephyr repository. They can get open CMSIS packs and start developing with that. Or they can develop with the archive SDKs that NXP has provided for years. So it really helps the customers use Visual Studio Code to get started with MCX and our other microcontrollers with these accelerated improvements that NXP has developed.
So let's transition to the application code hub. Talk to me about how this improves the MCUXpresso developers' experience.
Yeah, so the application code hub has gotten a lot of positive feedback from our customers and from the market. What the application code hub has done is it's providing system level solution for our customers. And NXP has done this for years. But what we found and what we received from our customers was it was really difficult for them to find the solutions. And also, sometimes some of our solutions were not publicly available. What we organize the application code hub around is providing solutions for what we term our technology pillars. And we have 12 pillars shown on the graphic. Really, it's the things that everyone's looking for. When you need to develop an AI/ML or a wireless connectivity application, motor control, vision or voice, you need to get started. And there's no better place in the application code hub to go in there, search on these key words, and you're quickly able to find solutions that are available to start your own evaluation. The difference with the application code hub is these are examples from experts at NXP. So the NXP engineers have been working on these hard tasks, these hard applications, and they've solved them. And in the past, they've been able to deliver them to a few customers. And NXP's been trying to find a way to get it to more people to evaluate, for more people to benefit from that unique and great use of our microcontrollers through software. And so that's what the application code hub does. It allows them to provide their projects to a larger audience. But it also has this user interface that's shown here where you can go in, you can filter by a device, by a board, or even those keywords, those technology pillars, and find something that really hits what you need for your solution. What is Application Code Hub? Some people ask. Well, ultimately, it's a GitHub repository. And what we're doing is we're taking the complexity of GitHub and making it easier for more people to benefit from it. And so a lot of customers are going to use different ways to get the software, but they're going to benefit from GitHub. One of the main ways they benefit is what we've done with the README file. Now, a README file, what that really is it's the instructions. It's the getting started. It's what is this going to do for me? And what we've done is provided a consistent README for every application. All 82 projects have a consistent overview so the customers know how to get started, how to test it, and what to expect with the results. So that's been very, very helpful.
Excellent. Now, Kyle, what are some of the applications that can be found in the application code hub?
Well, as I mentioned, there's almost 82 now, and we're adding quite a few every month. What the categories, as I mentioned, are, they're the technology pillars. So there's artificial intelligence, machine learning, there's audio applications, graphics, LCD, rich graphic display examples, low power, security, vision. It goes on and on. Those are the categories. So users need to decide. So when they go in, they can search on specific peripherals that they have on their MCU or on the MCX. They can choose, for example, that they want to use the ADC and maybe pair that with the DMA. And so they can search on those keywords in the application code hub and pull those examples. It can provide multiple examples that they can see how these complex projects are solved. A few of the popular titles that we've seen a lot of people download is the industrial control panel, magnetic low power wake up, permanent magnet, sensorless FOC using the MCX A device, VG Lite examples. There's one for machine learning with dry beam images and to classify them using EIQ. So there's a lot of different applications, and we're seeing more and more that are becoming popular with the customers as we release them.
Fantastic. Now, how would designers start using the application code hub?
Well, we make it available in a few ways. The first, they can go to NXP.com, they can go directly to GitHub, or they can pull it from the IDE of their choice. On the NXP.com, there's a short URL that they go to. It's NXP.com/ACH. Or they can go to the MCUXpresso.NXP.com, which we call the SDK builder, and they can have quick links to get into that user interface on the web. A lot of software developers just like to go to GitHub. So if they go to GitHub and search for the app code hub, they'll find the NXP GitHub repository, and then all of those projects are there. And we have actually created some automatic indexing tools even within the GitHub mechanics, so it will make it easier for them to explore on GitHub. And then the final and most common is the integration with our MCUXpresso ID and Visual Studio Code. They follow the same process, but that wizard walks the user through selecting through that UI, being able to choose from keywords, and then just choose and import the project, and it'll pull it right into that workspace, right into that environment, and they can get started and should have a very successful build and start evaluating.
So, the audience now understands the benefits of Visual Studio Code and Application Code Hub. But, Kyle, how is NXP improving something as simple as software delivery?
Yeah, well, software delivery isn't that easy as I've learned over the years. It's constantly evolving and changing. There's requirements with these open standard groups. There's challenges with security. There's a lot of new developing issues that we need to address when we deliver software to customers. So, for example, with delivering software to Zephyr and Matter, now suppliers need to integrate their software into these open software projects. So how's that done? Customers are requiring more software development support that allows them to put it into their DevOps. I mentioned that continuous integration of external sources so they can test and make sure that they're getting the right software. And so when you see those requirements for software delivery, it really looks at that old archive delivery system, and it's exposed some changes that had to occur. And that's really what we're going to show you in the next couple topics.
So, Kyle, how is NXP using GitHub to help address these new requirements?
Well, GitHub, as I mentioned, is very popular, but there's really four things that I'd like the listeners to understand. The first is when customers use our GitHub repository, they are now going to be using the same code base as our developers inside of NXP. So when they find an issue and they report into NXP, it will be on the same line of code that that developer is getting the request on. They can also do a lot with improved version and commit history. So when we use GitHub and we release a new version of the SDK, the customers are going to use GitHub to compare the versions. They'll be able to do the diff between what they're using and what they're changing to. They'll be able to see the commit history and see what commits were made and what the developers were doing when they made changes to the code. These are changes to the way we do GitHub today. The same thing is when we use GitHub, we're now going to have that as our core SDK. It's going to support all of our supported devices, and it will be used for our bare metal, our FreeRTOS, our Zephyr, and even Matter as it gets rolled out. All those ecosystems will be supported with the same SDK. And finally, as I mentioned, GitHub is very compatible with the ability for customers to use their CI or their DevOps software. So they'll be able to leverage GitHub and do those overnight tests, or make sure that if code changes by them or by us, it's quickly put into their testing routines and they can understand what changes occurred and get that product out to the customers quicker.
So, Kyle, how are open CMSIS packs improving development with NXP microcontrollers?
Well, CMSIS packs have been around for a while. They basically are a package that has contained the Cortex-M software delivered out to the different software environments. But what the Open CMSIS pack is doing is it's really an alternative method to delivering software in an archive pack. So what they've done is they've taken this traditional method, but now they store metadata inside of these packs. And with that metadata, they're able to provide information on dependencies. And what is good about that is when they're delivering it, the tools will be able to see, oh, I require this pack, or I need this software. And the user doesn't have to know that. It's all included inside of the Open CMSIS pack. The second thing is that this is a standard. And so it's frustrating sometimes when a customer is trying to integrate software and they get one software package from a software vendor here, another from some software here. They're all using a different package format. With the Open CMSIS pack, these software packages will be compatible. They'll be like Lego blocks, and everybody loves a Lego. So they'll be able to plug those Legos or those software packs into an IDE like MCUXpresso IDE, ARM MDK, and even IAR's Embedded Workbench will accept Open CMSIS packs. So the other thing that it does is similar to the application code hub, but more at the software device and board level. It will allow the customers to do a simple, hey, I'm working with this device, or I just got this board, what's available? Or I'm working on Ethernet, what do you have available? And the packs are all categorized, and so it will give them a list of packages or devices that would satisfy their search. And when they select the one, all that information in the pack will pull the other required software without the user having to track that all down. So the other thing that people are wondering about is it will still leverage some of the tools. So the IDEs will support Open CMSIS packs, but also the configuration tools, the things that generate that additional code for clocks, pins, peripherals that people depend on. That is now working with Open CMSIS pack projects. We're very excited about this, and there's going to be a lot of training and new support coming out in the near term for people to, explore Open CMSIS packs on their own.
So, Kyle, to wrap things up, where should my audience go for more information about the MCUXpresso ecosystem?
Yeah, so for the topics I shared, there's a few places to go. The first is definitely evaluate Visual Studio Code. There's a quick link. It's nxp.com/VS Code. Go there, download it, provide us your feedback. We think you're going to really appreciate working with VS Code. The application code hub, I gave the URLs earlier, but really if you go to mcuxpresso.nxp.com/app-code-hub, you can find that and start seeing all those valuable application solutions. And then if you have just some general questions about the MCUXpresso ecosystem, it's nxp.com/MCUXpresso. And if you want to get started with the Freedom MCX development board, I'd suggest you go to Mouser and get that MCX Freedom development board and get started today with all these tools that we talked about that fully support that MCX microcontroller.
Perfect. Well, Kyle, I think that's all I have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot, Amelia. It was a great time.
And before we go, you didn't forget to click that link, did you? There you can find even more information about this topic from NXP. For Chalk Talks, I'm Amelia Dalton from eejournal.com. eejournal.com. For more Chalk Talks, head on over to the Chalk Talk section of EE Journal. You can't miss it, it's right across the top. Or head on over to YouTube, youtube.com/EEJournal.